And welcome everybody to another edition of Tobs Talk. I'm Jake Donnelly, and Tobs Talk is presented by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. Well, the last time we spoke, we were preparing for our big July 4th Independence Day game against the Morehead City Marlins. Braden Bristow was the starter in that game, and he had a rough couple of first innings. He allowed one run in the first inning, and the Marlins were able to load the bases, but then Bristow was able to strike out the final two batters of that inning, and giving the Marlins the 1-0 lead after one inning of play. In the top of the second, the Marlins were able to grab two more, and yet again, Braden Bristow, starting a theme for the night, was able to strike out the final batter of the inning. And it just kept kind of going from there. But the Tobs couldn't score any runs off of the Marlins starter, Tyler Thorne. So it was 3-0 until the bottom of the sixth inning when the Marlins had to go to Chris Vile, their freshman reliever from Stanford University, and the Tobs jumped all over Vile. Vile did not record a single out, and in fact, the Tobs scored 3 runs in that inning, tying the game up at 3-3. Braden Bristow continued to pitch very well out on the mound, striking out his 10th batter in the top of the 7th inning. After 7 innings of play, the game was still tied at 3-3, and Justin Hay, despite the fact that Braden Bristow had thrown 119 pitches, decided to roll out Bristow in the top of the 8th inning. Now, I'm sure a lot of you people are thinking, you know what, 119 pitches, that is way too much. That kid has to be tiring. Well, Bristow is one of the strongest guys on the team, and if you were at the game on Friday, and well, there was only 3,722 fans at the game and about 400 or 500 more outside of Fleming Stadium, you would have known that Bristow was just getting better and better and stronger as the night went on. So maybe you would have taken him out, maybe not. I'm of the group, though, if you're looking as good as Bristow looked out on the mound, you roll him right back out. That's what head coach of the Tobs, Justin Hay, did. In the top of the 8th inning, it looked like things were going to go well, as Bristow induced a lazy ground ball to third, but Doug Teagarden was unable to handle the ball. He bobbled it once, he bobbled it twice. The throw across the diamond was real close at first base, but the runner was called safe. And then things kind of just started to unravel from there. Bristow, a couple batters later, ended up giving up a run that made it 4-3 in favor of the Morehead City Marlins. Head coach Hay called on Michael Wilson out of the bullpen with guys on second and third and one out, and a weak ground ball just got by the dive of Doug Teagarden, who was a little bit off of the line over at third base. That drove in 2 runs, and it made it 6-3 in favor of the Morehead City Marlins, and it looked like all was lost for the Tobs. But the Tobs doing something that they really haven't done a lot of this season in the bottom of the 9th inning, started to really scratch and claw their way back. They were able to get a run across, and they were able to load the bases with 2 outs for Seth LaRue. Now, LaRue had come up earlier in the game in the 3rd inning with the bases loaded and hit a screamer out towards center field, but it was right at the center fielder, Trent Limecooler. Here, in the bottom of the 9th inning, he had a 1-0 count, swung and mashed it towards deep center field, but it's 405 feet out towards center at Fleming Stadium, and Limecooler had just enough room out there. More than likely, if Hurricane Arthur had not come through North Carolina just the night before, the temperature and the density of the air would have been much different. Balls that were flying earlier in the season were dying, especially out in center field. So the Tobs ended up dropping the game 6-4 against the Morehead City Marlins, which was also the Marlins' first road win of the season. If it seems like the Tobs are losing games to a team that was the worst team in the league in the first half of the season, well, that's true. But guess what? The Marlins are now 3-0 in the second half, and they sit atop the East Division in the Coastal Plain League. So the Tobs go from the worst team overall in the CPL on Friday night, and then they head out to Edenton, the best team in the CPL, on Saturday night. And what do they do against Edenton? They get a comeback victory and end up winning 8-5 against the Edenton Steamers. Michael Belcher took the mound and had a very impressive bottom of the 1st inning, taking out the side in order and picking up 2 strikeouts. But mechanically speaking, as the night wore on, he started to really unravel. His front shoulder was kind of flaring open, a little bit too much tilt with his back, so his pitches were going right across the strike zone but never actually in the strike zone, and the Steamers were able to score 1 run, in the bottom of the 3rd inning. Then the Tobs scored 4 in the top of the fourth to take a 4-1 lead. All with 2 outs, mind you. The Tobs had 3 singles back to back to back, including an RBI single by Jake Armstrong. Then the next batter that came up for the Tobs grounded out to short, and it looked like the inning was going to be over as the bases were loaded. It was just a short flip to the second baseman, except the flip was about 20 feet in the air, and it was 12 feet over the second baseman's head. The ball rolled all the way to the right field line. 2 runs came home. The Tobs would add another in the inning to make it a 4-1 lead. But the Steamers in the bottom of the fourth inning scored 3 more runs of their own and tied the game up at 4-4. Later on in the game, the Steamers were able to put across an unearned run off of Daniel Batts, who was terrific out of the bullpen once again for the Tobs. The 3rd time this season at Hicks Field that Daniel Batts has gone at least 3 innings and allowed 1 unearned run. And that's exactly what he did on Saturday night, keeping the Tobs in the game. It was a 5-4 game until the top of the 8th inning when the Tobs scored 3 runs and things really got wacky. The Tobs were able to load the bases again with 2 outs for Matt Rembolak. The count was 1-1, and the pitcher for the Edenton Steamers went to his mouth and licked his hand, which would normally be a balk. But the home plate umpire made him exchange baseballs. Justin Hayes saw that, challenged the fact that it was a balk, but the umpire had made him switch baseballs before he stepped back onto the rubber. So essentially the umpire saved a run for the Edenton Steamers. Let's just say that Coach Hay wasn't all that happy about how things turned out at that point in time. But the next pitch, a 1-1, missed out of the strike zone, which made it 2-1 to Matt Rembolak. Then Rem on the 2-1 pitch, a fastball, grounded it down the line at third base, past the third baseman, and into left field, scoring 2 runs. Doug Teagarden, who was intentionally walked as a pinch hitter in the prior at-bat, ended up at third base, then saw the left fielder Orlando Oliveira for the Edenton Steamers just holding on to the ball and kind of put his head down a little bit, and Teagarden, a very good base runner, took off for home, ended up scoring on the play, and that one single down the left field line by Matt Rembolak turned a 5-4 deficit into a 7-5 lead for the Wilson Tobs. They would tack on 1 more in the top of the 9th inning on Justin Carroll's RBI single. Carroll ended up with a double in the 8th inning and a single in the 9th inning. So the big 6'6" outfielder from UNC Wilmington coming up big in the final 2 innings for the Wilson Tobs. So they lose to the worst overall team in the CPL on Friday and come up with a comeback win against the best overall team in the CPL on Saturday. Tobs really sticking with that Jekyll and Hyde season. Well, tonight's game is not a Tobs game at Fleming Stadium. It is going to be USA versus Japan. And it's that collegiate team that we saw about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And gates will open at 7 o'clock for this game, or first pitch is scheduled for 7:05. Gates will open at 6 o'clock. When we come back, I'll tell you more about Team USA and just exactly what's going to go on later tonight at Fleming Stadium. This is Tobs Talk presented by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. We'll be coming back in just a moment. And welcome back, everybody, to this very special edition of Tobs Talk presented by Thomas and Ferris. Tonight's game at Fleming Stadium is between the United States collegiate team and the Japanese collegiate team. So we'll have to wait a little bit to get more information on that game. First, just one more check in at the Tobs, who now sit at 17-15 overall and 2-2 in the second half of the CPL season, thanks to Daniel Batts' 3rd win of the season. He's now 3-0 out of the bullpen for the Tobs, and Chris Williams had a 6-out save against the best offense in the CPL. He now has 5 saves in as many chances, so he is doing a tremendous job, as is Daniel Batts, out of the bullpen for the Wilson Tobs. Well, tonight's game, as I mentioned, is between the United States Collegiate National Team, which is the team we saw play against the Tobs about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago in that 14-4 game. They will be playing against the Japanese collegiate team. Now, in yesterday's game in High Point, Thomasville, USA defeated the Japanese squad 10-0. And one of the guys who really had the best game for the United States squad was Mark Mathias, an infielder, a sophomore infielder out of Cal Polytechnical Institute. He drove in 3 runs, including his first home run of the season. We were trying to get him on, but he had to do some treatment, and I'm going to try to get him when he comes to Wilson later on in the afternoon today. The game is scheduled for a 7:05 start with gates opening at 6 o'clock. It is the second of 3 games between the United States squad and the Japanese squad. Last year, in an official friendship series, which is what these series are called between the two countries, the Japanese squad was able to win the series 3-2, including a 5-4 victory in Nippon, Japan for the 5th and final game. So USA kind of looking for a little bit of revenge, and they're off to a good start after winning last night's game 10-0. I mean, we saw this USA squad, and they have some serious hitters and some serious pitchers on this squad. So if you want to see some of the best players in the United States as well as some of the best players in the Japanese collegiate leagues, well, then you should make your way out to Fleming. Again, game starts at 7:05 with gates opening at 6 o'clock. Tonight's game is sponsored by Live Do USA, the Wilson's Visitor Center, Chick-fil-A, as well as the Hubert Vester Auto Group. So we thank all of those sponsors for sponsoring that game and being able to provide such a unique experience. Just 3 games between the USA squad and the Japanese squad, with game number 2 taking place tonight at historic Fleming Stadium. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, the Tobs tonight, their opponent, the Morehead City Marlins, hopefully because Hurricane Arthur came in and really devastated that area out in Morehead City. And so the field isn't really looking all that well, but the game is scheduled for 7:05 with gates opening at 6 o'clock. If the game does take place, we'll see if the Tobs can exact some revenge for that loss on Friday on July 4th, that 6-4 loss where the Tobs had the tying run at second base and Seth LaRue almost grabbed the win for the Wilson Tobs. The Tobs are now 5-2 this season against the Morehead City Marlins, looking to make it 6-2. So the Tobs on the road against the Morehead City Marlins, but we do have a game here tonight in Wilson, Team USA versus Team Japan. Both squads are made up out of collegiate players, and tonight's game is sponsored by, again, Live Do USA, the Hubert Vester Auto Group, Chick-fil-A, as well as the Wilson's Visitor Center. So thank you to all those sponsors for sponsoring tonight's game. This has been another edition of Tobs Talk presented by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. Hopefully, we'll see you all at Fleming.